And we're live. Right. Welcome, everybody. It is August 16th, 2021. I am Mayor Densmore. This is our regular meeting of the and would you help me get started, as we usually do, with Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, for all.
Okay. I am presuming everyone has had an opportunity to, well, first off, let's see if we have everyone here, if we have a quorum here. Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Batcher? Here. Ms. Cheney?
Here.
Mr. Knepp? Mr. Britnoff?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Van Horn?
Here.
I'm aware that Mr. Knepp is at a family funeral, which is why he's not here. Is there a motion to excuse Mr. Knepp?
Motion to excuse Mr. Knepp.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Presuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at the agenda, do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I have one item for the agenda.
Sure.
It came from late this afternoon, and that is the resolution to approve the budget. It just came from the budget hearing.
Very good. A motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And figure out which one I'm looking at here, agenda-wise. Yes, so one of the things that I get to do as mayor is swear in new officers to the police department, and I have the honor this evening to approach. Do you, Matthew Hughes, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio, the laws and ordinances of the Village of Gulf Manor to which you are appointed, and to the best of your ability will discharge these duties of police officer? I do. I want to tell everybody here, officer dues, I've learned, I grew up on the west side, born and raised on the west side, went to Oak Hills High School. In 2015, he joined the Sheriff's Department, Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. 2017, he joined the National Guard. His wife is Samantha, and he has a daughter, Vivian. I want us to welcome him. I want to acknowledge as well that it's a tough police officer. We've talked about this before. Police services are under scrutiny in the country. I'm proud that that we have such a good department here, full of good officers. He comes well recommended. He wouldn't have been asked to join us if that was the case. And I want to welcome you here and ask that we all welcome.
You can stay if you'd like.
Just
Just so you know, you're welcome.
I see that we have a registered resident to speak to council. Is there any other individuals besides Ms. Moskowitz? Ms. Moskowitz, we have a 3-minute limit per speaker, which I will be very charitable with, since you're the only one registered here to speak. Would you like to approach and speak to the council?
that person doesn't feel with my 3 minutes. Thank you.
And I forgot to say, remember to state your name and address when you
that's right.
the first,
Yeah.
I'm going to help you get those.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I flunked that in teacher's college.
Hi, my name is Elaine Moskowitz, Moscovitz. Spell check gets it wrong. And I live at 2426 Canterbury Avenue. Council members, Mayor Densmore, Village Administrator,
and village solicitor, thank you for considering my request today. It's a simple request to install a free little library in front of the community building. A free little library structure in front of the community building will be an ideal vehicle to promote council and governmental communications within the village, since there is a shelf that can be loaded with the newsletter you're using to provide information regarding activities like the community yard sale and dumpster that was in the park in July. More folks could take advantage of programs available on the Gulf Manor residents, to Gulf Manor residents, like the COVID-related rent and utility assistance that's available that you would only know about on the gulfmanor.gov website. Perhaps most importantly now, more information regarding the fire department meeting that will be meeting on Wednesday and be included in the structure. A visit to the Addison Free Little Library event showed that they have one proudly installed in front of their community building, and that's what the pictures are. Everybody except Roger has double sides on that, so you can look at that. Now for the objections you have. First, the Planning and Zoning Commission only allow the libraries to be installed on private property, not commercial or public property. The solution, that's why we have variances in the Planning Commission. Second, there's an issue of maintenance. Who is going to be responsible to maintain the structure? Yes, I would say council would have to perhaps designate or take turns with this responsibility. I have not seen any vandalism to any of the little libraries in Gulf Manor, and with the knowledge that there is camera and security on the building, I don't think it will present much of a problem in front of the police station. Now, as far as maintenance regarding keeping the library sufficiently stocked with books, I see this as an opportunity. I'm sure Michelle Gunther from the Literacy Network of Greater Cincinnati would be happy to provide various reading level appropriate books regarding civics education that would answer many questions adults and kids have. This could be the go-to library for civics education. I hope I have addressed the objections council may have to installing a free little library at the community building. It seems appropriate to me that communication to all residents in the village is what community is all about. And I think we've got 30 seconds in case there's other objections.
Thank you, Ms. Moskowitz. Are there any questions? I know I have one. It may have been covered. I apologize if you had already addressed this. I know I'm a proud owner of a community little library. There's certain responsibilities as the private resident who has one of these in terms of upkeep with it and everything, and taking care of the books and everything, kind of cycling in through it. How would that be handled specifically if with your proposal?
Well, like I said, the books, we have gotten lots of books from the Literacy Network of Greater Cincinnati. And they can be, like I said, specific to that. So we asked Michelle, hey, can we stock this library, first of all, with, books regarding civics? I think that would be great. A lot of people. Second, as far as the maintenance, I haven't really seen any maintenance problems, and I walk around a lot. And look, and I haven't, not that there wouldn't be out there on the website, but like I said, with the being in front of the police station, in the same building, and with the cameras, I really don't see any issue. Yes, somebody will have to either, council can take turns, or somebody can have an interest, or one of us from, can say, okay, stop it. That we can handle that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking more of is like with ours, it's designated as a kids library, and we get all kinds of books in there that aren't kids, right? That aren't kids' books, and we don't want to. But someone has to physically take those and go put them someplace else. I don't know how.
Well, actually, that's a good question because we have a designated. I've heard from friends of mine that they really don't want. It's like this is what the steward of the library is supplying it. But anybody can leave a book and take a book.
Okay.
That's, I mean, actually, somebody had a great book on the African American population from the early 1800s to 1868 that I took down on the bar. It's fantastic. So, it's, but so anybody could leave a book and I'll probably put it in my library.
Yeah.
But that's it.
So as I've heard, it seems like that there's that issue as far as just if we were to move forward with something like this, making sure that piece of it is taken care of, and then the other piece is the actual variance to allow one to be put on private property. And I guess that's something I would ask our solicitor about. If you see any issues with narrowing that to a specific, I mean, I don't see that we would have like all of a sudden 20 of them all around the building, or something.
Right. The variance is what it's right?
We also, I think, when we passed the ordinance, agreed that we're going to revisit in 6 months. Was it?
Yeah, there's a maximum of 12 to be installed, and then there's a time frame that the ordinance prescribes. I would recommend next month, because I think council needs to let the administration look at the issue, determine if it's something, determine the issues, and then let council make a decision about how to move forward.
Does that sound all right with you?
That sounds fine, one thing, it's gonna be so much easier, I think, if you can put the newsletters in there instead of you walking up and down all the streets distributing them.
So you are aware
For that.
ordinances and minutes and those kinds of things are already posted at the door to the fire department. At the
Oh,
center
are
of the
they?
building.
Okay.
Yeah. You can go over there now and look at all the minutes from last month.
And we're in the fire department.
It's right on in the plaza where it says recreation building. There's a clipboard there that everything gets posted.
Okay, yeah, but, I mean, I just think that, it would, and as you can see, they do have one in Addison. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Zoom
Made a
meeting,
motion to have this considered by executive committee.
do we need a motion for that? Or I guess, the chair, would you like to
Well,
have a
let's
motion?
put it on their agenda.
Would you like a motion to have it put on your agenda?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, council requests that the following issue be placed on your agenda.
Excellent.
Very good. Presuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at the minutes, is it just one set of minutes that we have or more?
It's actually two, July 12th and July 29th special meeting.
All right. Any amendments to be made to these minutes or a motion to approve them as is?
Mr. Valiant sent an amendment.
Just a couple of comments.
Okay.
Mr. Lange's.
To which date?
12th. It was just clarifying the motion.
Okay.
Approving it as an emergency.
Any questions or objections to proceeding with that amendment to the minutes? Without objection, then it sounds like there are none. Do we have a motion to approve the June 14th, 2021 meeting minutes?
July.
Yeah, they say June. Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. The July 12th, I was actually looking at the minutes of what we had approved in those minutes. The July 12th, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Then the next set,
I haven't signed it.
July 29th.
I can sign it. And then the July 29th minutes, motion to approve. As amended. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That objection, I take that as unanimous. So they are approved. All right. I I don't see Chief Timmers here with the Little Miami Fire and EMS report. I do know that the report was sent out. Does anybody have any questions about it? I had an opportunity to take a look at it. And I have a request that be made. I guess I would ask that our representatives, Mr. Van Harn and Mr. Lanzer, would take this question to the meeting maybe on Wednesday. The report that we get maybe I'm misreading it, so you can inform me if I am, gives a detailed breakdown of all the different kinds of, whether it's having a seizure or whether, that kind of thing, personal data, of course. And then it gives a breakdown of how many occurred in Columbia Township and how many occurred in the village of Gulf Manor. But we don't get a breakdown of like the incidents themselves. So it's not easy to see a pattern of like, do we have a lot of people, we have more people getting sick or more people having breathing issues, for instance, in Gulf Manor. Are we seeing, thinking like the two biggest categories, what are those people getting sick, and was it, what was the second biggest one? Trouble breathing. All right, so with the trouble breathing, is that disproportionately Gulf Manor? If it is, I would want to know that. But we don't get, for any of those items, we don't get a breakdown of whether that's occurring. So I'd like to see that changed in the report. I think I spoke to that before. So if you could take that.
My question is, I'm not sure on Gulf Manor and Gulf Township.
Okay.
The two stations. We may get a call on Station 47 that goes to Gulf Township, right? So
It would approach, yeah, I'd be happy with just knowing what our station is dealing with.
yeah, I think that's what it is.
But it says, so that number of,
Yeah, it's just fire and EMS
Okay.
for Station 47. That, I think in order to get that level of detail, he's going to have to get.
all right. Well, I stand correct. When I look at that, I interpret that as saying Columbia Township and 70 are Gulf Manor, but they don't tell us which.
Taxing district or contractual relationship.
How do they
Not
know that?
Station 47.
How do they know that it's 70 and 30? Then that's, I can be really dense.
Based on the address.
I think the
If
CAD,
they enter the EMR, it's gonna be with the electronic medical records software, they're gonna have an address for every patient, so it seemingly should not be too difficult to get that kind of information from. And that count, is that what's called, that count?
So that was my question. If they're coming up with the 70-30, then why can't they?
Be just as easy.
Right. So anyway, if you can ask the question, and again, I may be completely just dense and not understanding the report.
Okay, can you restate it? So
Yeah, so we're told that there's 100 incidents that have been reported here, and they break those incidents down, and then they say of those incidents, 30 were Columbia Township and 70 were Gulf Manor, but we don't know which are what, which I'm thinking is significant because when you look at the two biggest ones, the most kind of runs, you're looking at one of those is people having difficulty breathing. And I'd like to know, is that predominantly, like, do we have a breathing? Would like to know what kind of issues Gulf Manor is dealing with specifically.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about the report? Do we have a motion to approve the report?
I think, Ron, you asked us to make sure we report about the roof too.
Yeah, if you could just make sure that the board is aware that the roof is complete.
Wow.
Don't tell them that it leaks. In my report, I'll talk about there's a HVAC problem with seams that need to be sealed, which fixing the roof ferreted that out. So.
And then I have one question for Andy. Well, I'll ask Andy later.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the report?
Actually, I don't think
We don't think we
do
do, we don't do that?
And not our report, it's just information to us.
Motion to affirm the report. All right, so I'll move on to, I have a couple brief things. As I mentioned before, I'm going to reiterate here, I'm creating a park committee to advise council and administration on future development of village parks. Additional playground equipment, splash pad investment, shade structures, and dog park development are among the topics of which I'm seeking community input and prioritization. If you're interested in joining the park committee, please email me. Basically, that will be something I'll be bringing to council to let you know who I've heard from that's interested in fulfilling that capacity. I mentioned last week that if you guys have any ideas of who would be good on that committee, to let me know. I've had a couple of people that have responded with interest in being on that committee. So please let me know. I plan on putting this in our next village newsletter that we'll be delivering out to the community to make sure that we're getting an even distribution of, the ask. Hamilton County Emergency Management and Homeland Security assisted me in securing N95 and 3-ply masks for any residents of the village. These are available free of charge to anyone in the village in need. If you or know anyone that needs N95 or 3-ply masks, if you know anyone in the village that needs those, please let us know. You can pick them up at the village clerk's office in the municipal building. This was in discussion with the administration. The best way to handle it was to have the police clerk help with that distribution. Again, this will be an item that goes out in the newsletter to all residential mailboxes. I know we have trouble still with the apartment buildings, but into all the mailboxes will be a request for, how many is it, like 5,000?
It's lots of boxes, and they're nice packs. Roger's got the one there in front of him.
Yeah.
Can you hold that up?
What you have in front of you right here.
Oh, yeah.
So take
Yeah.
one when you leave.
Yeah.
And Paul
So-
did nice display baskets of them for all of our entrances. So
I believe it's on the order of 2,000 N95 masks, all right, and 3,000 3-ply masks. And that's, I asked for it specifically for our residents, all right. We can get them for our staff and our, which I believe we have plenty right now. We're not depleted of them for our staff, for first responders. The emergency management is going to look at making sure that we have those for them. But they were good enough to allow us to have this many for our residents as well. We thank them. I believe Ron may mention this as well, but this will be another item to go out in the newsletter to our residents, that anyone that needs COVID related on Thursday, September 9th, between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Hamilton County to help anyone in need of financial assistance, transportation assistance, medical assistance, childcare assistance, food assistance, utility assistance, rent, mortgage assistance, and more. No appointments necessary. Just show up between the hours of 1:30 and 3:30 on Thursday, September 9th to get help with connecting to those resources. Again, I want to emphasize the importance of delivering this information door to door, because everybody in our village is paying attention to our website and seeing the social media that we put this information out on. I believe this is information that's already gone out on our social media channels.
Not yet.
Okay.
I wanted to get this announced this evening in council, and we'll have a complete package out on the next couple days.
Good. So if you know of anyone that's struggling or anyone that can help us get the message out, please connect with the administration, because I believe they're going to have the official statement on it that can be pushed out. Roger, I thought it was on the website.
I posted it on Good Golf Manor News.
Okay.
So save the date.
Just hit on next door.
Click on the next door, Jack. Okay.
So this is, it's a great service, because typically what people have to do to get connected to these services is head down to Job and Family Services, wait in a line, get scheduled an appointment. They can call, there's a 513 relief phone number that they can call and have someone over the phone basically tell them, here's where you got to go. Here's the documents you should bring with you and everything, as opposed to being able to just show up here at our park and have someone walk you through from beginning to end with that process. As you know, non-discrimination ordinance was passed by the council last year, and then it went to the voters for approval and overwhelmingly was passed by the voters. Part of that ordinance called for the creation of a Human Rights Commission, all right, which basically would hear the complaints and help people find resources and remedy, work with, well, do mediation services as well if someone has a complaint about discrimination in the village. The ordinance requires council to appoint individuals who will serve on that Human Rights Commission in determining the outcome of those cases within the village. If you'd like to be on this commission or would like more information about it, please contact me. I've begun reaching out to a number of folks to make sure. I've said all along that my intention was to make sure that this commission well represented the different interests that represent Gulf Manor. And so I've been reaching out to folks, begun that process of reaching out to folks. I would ask that council do that as well. Let me know of what the interest is, and then I will accumulate that together and bring it to council for a recommendation, right, as a recommendation to council for that commission.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment on that real quick?
Sure.
So for these folks who are interested in applying, there is an application on the website. If you go to government, second drop down, appointment to boards and committee requests, there's an application that you can click on. It's a fillable form. We would ask anybody who wants to volunteer, and we've been doing this with volunteers, they need to fill this form out, because this will give us information for contact and those sorts of things. Also allows us to understand if there would be any conflicts of interest with anybody serving for the village in whatever capacity. So I don't know if people are aware that that's out there, but I think it's easy. It's kind of a good thing to kind of get a commitment when you're talking to somebody and say, hey, here's this link, go out and fill that out.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions about that later on? Yeah.
So my thoughts on it is it's been more than a year since council passed it. We're coming up on a year since the community overwhelmingly endorsed it. So I would like to be able to say that we've that we're following through on the community's mandate by this fall, right? So we got to do our part on that. And my final piece concerns the open seat that we have on the Planning Commission. Administration received applications for filling that seat. Administration interviewed folks. I interviewed folks. We had a lot of really good folks that were part of that. I sought counsel from members of the Planning Commission to get a sense of, to fill in the kind of gaps that I had, my knowledge of what the Planning Commission does, and made a decision amongst all those really good applicants to go with Mr. Lou Marks, and offered that to him, and he accepted. So I think you're all familiar with Mr. Marks. He served on council. He's been an active member of our community for years, and that was the deciding factor for me, frankly, was his experience with the council and with this village. But as I said, we did have a lot of really good applicants. And anybody have any questions concerning that? And with that, I will.
So council needs to affirm your decision.
Just a motion to affirm Mr. Marks' appointment.
Motion to affirm Mr. Marks to the Planning Commission.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Hirsch.
Service anniversaries.
Oh, yeah, absolutely apologize. So we have service anniversaries that I'm going to speak to from the second quarter and the third quarter. Celebrating 1 year anniversaries, and this is in the second quarter coming up September 18th. Brian Timmers, who's a part-time maintenance, anniversary. For 2 year anniversaries, we have Mac Recker. He's a part-time police officer. He's celebrating 2 years. That was on April 15th. For 3 years, we have Mr. Hirth, our village administrator, from April 2nd. Also with 3 years, on the 20th of August, Justin Layton, who's a police officer here, celebrating 3 years with us. For 4 years, Andy McGinnis, on April 19th. And Denise Van Pelt, August 14th. She's our police clerk, celebrating 4 years. Celebrating 5 years, Jason Kurth, maintenance lead. That was May 10th. And celebrating 24 years, Michael Mullen, will be on September 21st. So please help me in thanking all these individuals for their service to our village and continued service to our village. We appreciate it. We can't do, administration can't do, us as council can't do, but we can't do anything as a community without these folks' commitment to the village. So appreciate their long-standing commitment with us. Mr. Hirth.
So there's a number of things here. I won't go into a lot of detail because my comments will be in full in the minutes, but I'll mention the COVID protocols. I appreciate everybody's cooperation. We did start wearing masks a week ago, and then the next day we went to high transmission and we locked the building down. Locking the building down sounds scary, like we're hiding. We're pros at this now. We spent last year serving our residents in the finest way possible throughout the pandemic, and we continue to do that even under these new circumstances. So what I hope is that our swift and deliberate action to make this happen helps to contribute to controlling the virus going forward.
Mr. Hirth, can you speak to what some of those protocols are for people that, I know that most of us are familiar, but anyone that's watching might not be?
Sure. So basically, if you are a visitor to the building, we'll ask that you ring the bell. The bell rings on various phones throughout the building. So it's covered. We know somebody's there. Someone will come to you. The employee will have a mask on. We'll triage you at the door, determine what it is that you need. And then at that point, if it's necessary to bring them into the building, we'll do that, or many times we can just take care of the issue out the door. What we're asking for visitors is that you social distance. If you're social distancing, it's not necessary to wear a mask while you're seated, but as soon as you get up or when you come into the building, you need to be wearing a mask. We have plenty of masks to give to people. Thank you for doing that. But yeah, I think it's an easy process. So hopefully people will be compliant with doing that. Any questions? Y'all got any fun this evening? So.
Just a comment that it's become real for me personally that we do these things. I'm kind of stepping it back up again because I lost a very close friend of mine a week and a half ago to COVID after a long struggle with this relative time. It brought it really home to me and my family and her family, or his family.
Sorry to hear that.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of folks are experiencing that.
So, do you remember the Six Flags commercials with Mr. Six? And there was a song, "The Venga Bus." The Venga Bus is coming. So we have the 513 release bus. I can't get that out of my head when I talk about this. Steve's back there rolling his eyes. because he's heard this already. But we'll have more details as plans develop, as the mayor mentioned. They will set up across the park. The park is cordoned off right now because we're expecting the dumpster for the street sweeping, which takes place this week, correct? We'll be set up there, Jobs and Family Service will be there. We'll have additional information for you to spread around through social media and so forth. Last time we met, we talked about the American Rescue Plan. We didn't know exactly how much money we were getting. We didn't know where to get it. Good news is we know both now, and we actually have the money, have some of the money. Gulf Manor applied for and was approved to receive $374,000 in funding. Interesting note there is initially we were allotted about $700,000, but the state had not included townships in the allotment. And when they did that, everybody else got adjusted. So $374,000 is our total funding. That all needs to be spent by the end of 2024. The first installment, which is $187,242, $187,242 was received last month. That's been allotted to a special fund where we can track it. And the second half will be paid. This money has specific guidelines that has to be followed for doing or things that are not within our realm. So we don't have a food district, we don't have an entertainment area. There may be some revenue replacement things that we could do for businesses that may have been hurt by the pandemic. Some of the things that we can probably act on quickly we talked about in the executive committee was the mayor, when he was on council, led the drive to try and update lead pipes for residents, both on the private and public side. That was something that the village couldn't fund, but this money from the federal government actually does qualify for that program. That's something we could probably do fairly quickly, arrange for that this fall and have that construction start in the spring. The other thing some communities are doing is providing free Wi-Fi in various areas. We would probably make a recommendation to take a look at doing both of our parks, across the street in Volunteer Park and then Memorial Park. The other thing that council could consider, which other communities are doing, is paying a stipend to the employees during the coronavirus pandemic. So we need to have some discussions about that. What I will do is pass out to all of you the copious amounts of paperwork with defining what the projects are, giving us guidelines, and then probably what we need to do is sit down and figure out how we want to start collecting ideas and vetting ideas for the expenditure of this money. This is not the same as when the state and COVID funding, they were peeling $20 bills off last year, and we were trying to find ways to spend it. This year, it's much more controlled, and we have to be compliant because we'll get a lot of compliance. So, questions about that funding? Chief Campbell had mentioned that there are some law enforcement things that are out there, so he and I will take a look and see if there are some opportunities there also.
So you can send us the guidelines?
We'll send you the guidelines, yeah. I'll have them out to you sometime this week. The nice thing is we don't have to spend the money by tomorrow. So, 2020 census results are in, particularly for larger areas, bigger cities. We're searching for specifics related to Gulf Manor, and I've asked Mr. Lanzer to compile a summary of the census for us that we can talk about at the next council meeting. I did send you a link that I found that came out with that announcement. We're not sure that that's accurate information because some of those numbers, particularly the racial demographics of the village, do not look correct. If they did, we had a huge shift, and we want to verify that information before that's distributed.
I actually did check on that with a resident that works with local government or in the cities and stuff. He said that was based on the initial information from 2019. There is going to be another adjustment to that. We haven't, there was initial information released, but it's not really the final yet. So he said it's not quite, it's based on the census, but it's not finalized. It's basically
Okay.
Ask Joshua Fong.
So hopefully we'll have more information on that at the next council meeting. Just a quick update on my projects the administration projects that we're doing. The Vera Road update continues. The water pipe is the most complex piece of it. I know there have been a couple of residents who have called us and said, my water's been turned off. It hasn't happened. They're not turning the water off. They're laying the new pipe down next to the old pipe, and the old pipe stays in the ground. What they will do once the pipe is completely installed is they will then notify the residents. That transition will take some place in the dark of night, usually between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. when they actually connect you to the new system. So we'll make sure that you're aware of that when that comes. But that project is moving along quickly. My understanding is when they do the curbs, they actually will have a machine. They will come through and dig out the old curb and come directly behind and pour the new curb right behind it. Fair Oaks is a bonus project between Lasanaville and Vera. It's necessary to connect to Lasanaville Avenue with the new water pipe, so that section of street is also being excavated. Along with this project, we're also going to make the investment to go ahead and replace the curbs and the surface on that street also. So we're getting a little bonus section done for us. For road project funding for 2022, we have secured the Canterbury-Englewood project, which will probably start next spring. And then Elbrook, from Lasanaville to the Cincinnati project is still under review. We're waiting to hear back from the transportation funding. If that does not come through this year, we'll go ahead and apply for a SKIP grant for 2023. But we may be in a position at the end of on the waste collection contract, we talked about that in executive committee. There are a couple of things that we are improving with, which will include, and Angela, if you can help me with this includes the weekly recycling, same carts, collected weekly. We're also adding 4 weeks in the spring and 8 weeks in the fall of yard waste recycling. The idea behind that is to try and give our maintenance crews some help in terms of collecting leaves and brush and those kinds of things. Secondly,
Price, modest.
yeah, modest increase in price is only $1 more a month.
That's amazing.
So we were expecting, when we were going to have to bid this out, if we can extend our contract 3 years ago, it would have been close to a 20% increase over what we had been paying. So I'm not sure what Lumpy did, but this is a huge plus for us. We hope to have the actual contract documents for the executive committee to review this evening, but those did not come. So as soon as we get those, we will pass those out to all of council so you can review them. What we'd like to do is have executive adopt the contract on September 13th, and finance approve the financials on the contract on September 27th. So, liability and property insurance, we renewed our contract with the Ohio plan. We had a 2% increase. Part of that was because our claims were increased primarily due to the loss of a vehicle this past year, and then increased legal expenses for a dismissed claim against the village. That is compared to a regional average of a 4% increase, so we felt pretty good considering things look like that's where we were. Ms. Birkin reported in finance that the employee healthcare transition went well. We actually saved some money on our first bill. And the roof for the fire and rec building is completed. We're happy that that's over with. I did ferret out though, as we do have some issues with the HVAC that needs to be repaired that we'll take care of. The 2 mill levy renewal, which generates about $80,000 for the general fund, has been successfully placed on the ballot for November 2nd. And Code Official 12 continues to work with legal action on 6055 and 6066 Stover to take care of those blighted buildings. There's actually a third one that we're working on down there. And as you know, fire and EMS services, that's an ongoing issue for us. So those are the things that we've been occupying our time with in the last month since we last met. And unless there are questions, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Are there any questions?
I'd like to ask one question about something else. Can you refresh our memory on the strategic planning that we discussed last year? I think through the code.
So we had Greg Dale from McBride Dale Clearing come in and talk to what the process of a strategic plan would be. The next step, if we decide to engage that process, would be to contract with that vendor to come in and conduct how I would envision it would be a public meeting of council where all of the elected officials can talk about what your visions are for the village. You can vet your ideas with each other. That information would be collected. And then the second piece of that would be to do a survey with our residents. And then the third part of that would be to do a focus group then with our residents also. All of that information would then turn into a plan that we would direct in terms of what our strategic plan would look like.
My understanding is that would be both for strategic planning, economic development, and potentially information about park or.
Yeah, the park could be included in that.
Can I make a motion that we revive that or get that moving or how does that work?
So the issue is we probably need around $20,000 to $25,000 to support that. I think that was the initial number we talked about. There had been some CDAP funding that was available, but we did not qualify for that. So that really is kind of where we stopped in that process at this point. So we can move forward to talk to Dale McBride, or to Greg Dale rather. We would need to figure out how to fund it. Council can appropriate that money. I think the mayor had a perspective on that.
Yeah, one of the things, and I raised this with Mr. Hurth. I like the idea of us getting together and sharing our ideas of what our long-term vision is, what how we would prioritize, whether it be beautification of certain parts of the village, lots of different ideas of how to improve the village. And I think it's a great idea to get input. One of my concerns is that if we start, I'm thinking it's ideal for us to have a small group like the council, like Mr. Hurth, coming together and presenting an idea and then saying, which parts of this idea, like starting with something, like putting a ball out there, all right, start with something. And I'm thinking that we don't have to spend I have a reservation about spending $25,000 to have somebody come in and do something that we could do as far as getting input from the community. I think that's a significant, important thing for us to be doing. I think it's important for it. I know Ms. Cheney has been advocating for us all communicating better with one another. And I want to see that happen too. There's a lot of great ideas in here. You wouldn't be here if you weren't leaders. You got great ideas, and I want to see us all discussing those ideas. And I think that the administration's in a good place to receive those ideas. They got a lot of stuff going on. That's part of what I was talking to Mr. Hurth about. They got a lot of stuff going on for me to be giving them this task of saying, be the point person to be getting all these ideas and then come back, something I can help with too. I'm happy to work with Mr. Hurth on doing this, and then come back and say, here's the ideas that council has, that the elected officials have all been talking about. That you guys, that we've heard you say, Is there anything that we're missing here that you guys, that we're all sharing that didn't, like, to have a document that's basically reflecting what all the ideas are, all right? And how that might play out in a 5-year plan, okay? And then getting input from every household about, which ones of these, did you agree with this one? Are there areas of concern with what we're doing, to make sure that we have an avenue for feedback? And I'm not saying that the avenue for feedback has to be a certain way. I think it would be something that we'd all be discussing, how to get that feedback. I said, my reservation is about the $25,000 if that's what was stopping us before. But
What do we get for our 25,000? We're not experts here to pull this together. What would we get to benefit?
So I think collecting the information is something that we're willing to do. The problem is with a project like this, if it's not the prime thing that we're working on, it always gets moved to the side. Because we troubleshoot individual resident stuff ideally. And it can come from, what's some of the crazy stuff we get to deal with? Possums in driveways, deer,
There's a dead raccoon in the
sinkholes. I'm sorry, what?
There's a dead raccoon in the street on Elbow Road.
So,
That's
and
I
that's,
was literally dealing with a gigantic sinkhole.
yeah. And my concern is, I think this would be a good investment, is these are people who've done this for other communities already. They know how to get information from people. They know how to sit and listen to all of us talk. And I think when we have this discussion, you guys need to have the ability for Ashley to listen to Roger about what his vision is, and to have the ability to say, Roger, I love you, but that's a dumb idea. And vice versa. Because I think you guys need to have the ability to say those kinds of things. And this becomes, it has to be a public meeting because it would bring all of you together at the same time. But on the other hand, these are people who know how to answer, how to ask the right questions and get the right answers out of people. The cost is an issue, but I also think that it's an investment in our future. And it also help us get it done, because every month that goes by that we don't have a strategic plan, we're just falling further and further behind. Andy, would you like to speak to the value of a strategic plan? Because he's done this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the big value is having someone independent help facilitate the conversation. And I think it's really hard to do, to have that conversation if someone who's invested
right,
is leading.
no, that's excellent. Yeah.
And, go ahead.
No, please.
And the other thing too is, for me, because my background is marketing, we won't come up with all the ideas. I think I want to hear from the residents. This is a really good chance for us to actually hear out. Then we'll hear a few things that we never would have thought.
Exactly.
Or maybe we thought of one and said, wow, the response for this one was really powerful. And to me, that's exciting to me, but to them too. When we engage the community and they're actually a part of it, and they're going to see very simply maybe a request that they went to a focus group or they went to a mailing or something, feedback, and then the fruit is a nice little display of what our park's going to look like over the next 5 years or something. That whole process, the value of that is so much bigger than just putting something out there. One quick story is, one of my favorite marketing stories is P&G. They actually changed their spray bottles because somebody called and said, your window cleaner tastes the worst. And they were shocked, and they engaged that person and said, what are you talking about? This person happened to be sensitive and sprayed all kinds of different ones, and they realized that the spray bottles that everybody had been using were actually aspirating in the wrong way, and they changed their aspiration on it completely because of one phone call. They never, this is P&G, I mean, the stories that they have about Pringles, it's incredible because they listen to other people. I want to hear those voices. I don't want to, that's what it says to me.
And to build on that, I think there's a couple of things that will happen. We will learn how to do this, so this is a teaching moment for the rest of it. And I think we need to bring that information to the village so we can look at the village in a different way. The other piece of that is particularly when we get you guys together, it's a team building exercise. I think it will help to open the channels of communication and help the rest of you work together when we come to the crosswords and making decisions and those kinds of things. I think we also include the chief, we include other people in these discussions, but I think that the nucleus starts with this group here. Because we know each other now. We've been together for at least 2 years. The other thing we have to think about is we may have 2 newcomers in this group too at some point in time. So we need to consider how
Elections coming up, for those who aren't clear, 2 newcomers, there may be 2 new council members.
Yeah. So that being the case, I think we also need to have some kind of thought in terms of how we integrate new people into this group so we don't miss a beat. So that's why I would advocate, I think, that investment, and that's not the only investment we would make, that's to get us started. But then after that happens, then we can make a decision how much further we want to go. And it's not somebody else's plan that they're giving to us.
See, that's
our plan.
That was my concern with it. And I totally agree. And I like the idea of having these specific points about having an impartial, non-invested party that's helping us, mediate through this whole thing. I think that's great. I want us talking more. I don't want it to be this thing where we're saving up all our ideas for this date 2 months from now that we have scheduled. I want people talking to each other about what your ideas are. And I want you, I've had that personal experience myself. I'm sure you guys have as well, where you have a great idea, you're talking it through with someone, and you have a good enough relationship with them that they can be like, you got to address this, and this, dude. It may be a great idea, but you're not addressing these things. No one's going to buy into that. All right. We need to be able to talk to each other that way. And I don't think that we can pay somebody else I don't want us to say that, or I want us to be able to communicate well with one another. I think that this can help facilitate that. But I don't want us waiting to do that.
To help us do that.
I have a question. What does a strategic plan look like when we get it? I understand they facilitate this discussion.
Each one's really unique to each community. So when we do it, we did one for State College, Pennsylvania. The plan looks very different. It's based on the needs and the feedback and the vision of each new community. And it's really relying on the electives. It's also relying on getting the opinion of people who are outside the elected. And that's one of the things that I worked for. It was our responsibility to go find them, talk to them, create an atmosphere where we can get them together and get different opinions, bounce ideas. Ultimately ends up in a report that's and it's updated annually or however frequency.
But it tells us, here's phase 1. These are the things we need to work on now.
It came back.
Okay.
What I was envisioning is that we have something that's like, you have phases to a plan, but like what was mentioned, having like pictures, just like when you're doing development of like properties and things, that you have pictures of this is what it's, what we're thinking, what it would look like. Like we're talking about with park stuff and everything, to have someone that could actually come in and say, this is how, with these different ideas that the community has, we've gone out, these are the ideas that have come back, here's what it could look like, and being able to show us that. Is that all included, which I don't think any of us know, for that price of $25,000?
That's not.
Right.
That's not. This is the beginning.
Well, we don't necessarily want that. They might say there's 10 things that the residents or the council, or whatever, in this, just the park.
Yeah,
just whatever.
I was speaking
And
to
then
the
we
phases
still have-
of it.
We have
Yeah.
a chance to then work, massage or work those.
So we know we have the TAP study, which we really haven't referred to. That gets dusted off. We all take a look at that. That needs to be a part of the conversation. But then what I'm hoping, what my direction to them would be is, Our biggest issue is generating revenue. Our second business, well, they're co-issues. Residents want us to reduce expense for them, so they want taxes lowered. We need to generate more revenue so we can do the things that we want to do. So those two things are in conflict with each other. The TAP study kind of addresses that, but it doesn't really say to us, how do we do that? How do we pick out what's the sweet spot that we need to do first to get the most gains out of it? So it's kind of like, and the mayor and I have talked about this, the mayor would like to see a splash park in the park.
Splash pad.
What my understanding is, we need to address, before we do anything over there, we need to address the wall that's falling down. So that being the case, as an analogy, step one is fix the wall. Step two is whatever that step is. Step three is that. That's what we're looking for, not necessarily to say to us that we're not capable of deciding what those steps are, but it gives us focus. Then I can say to you guys, okay, here's this number one step that we need to work toward, and let's get this done in 2022. This is what we need to focus on. It's like, I'm always pointing at that thing, it's like those three priorities: financial sustainability, infrastructure, and safety. We knew when things were crumbling, those are the things we had to attend to get us to where we are today. This now takes us to the next level.
Did you make a motion?
I asked if I,
Well, it's probably we give Mr. Dale to update his proposal.
Yeah.
And let Mr. Hurd bring that back. 25,000 is within his spending authority. But it sounds like he doesn't want to take that step without getting some input from you. So maybe getting that updated, taking it back to executive and finance, and getting the recommendation to go forward with the study.
Is there a
It's
motion?
just been about a year since we got from Brad.
Something like that. Yeah, it was during the pandemic. I
Yeah,
remember.
The consensus of council is you want to move forward, then
Yeah.
Mr. Hurd contact him.
Question about what all would a 25, whatever the package is, what all does it include, and we can get those details.
Well, and what he'll tell us is what's the flow chart? What are the first steps? Again, first steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. And developing that plan is going to get us there. I would have to say to you that, to me, working within the structure of a strategic plan towards whatever our future is would be a refreshing thing to be working on right now, just because we've been mired in all of these other issues for almost 2 years. It would be nice to be doing something that moves us forward or ensures that we're moving forward.
Or can track how we're moving forward, where we are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
With moving forward.
yeah, for me, I'm hoping that if they look at our what we have for business and potential for economic development stuff, potential for the park, and maybe some futuristic things that really make that park even more great for both Manor and the greater community. I'm eager to hear and see what they can do with that. So I guess how do we make a motion that we do, or we need a motion?
I think what you're hearing is the consensus to go get that report on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then bring it back to the executive committee, the finance committee. Finance to say, yes, we've got the funds, executive say, this is what we want to do. And then Mr. Hurd has that authority to sign the contract.
We'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or Mr. Lanzer for the fiscal officer report? Doesn't look like
All right. So for July fiscal year 21, the village had an adjusted bank balance of $3.5 million. Of this, the vast majority can be found in the village's primary checking account. The remaining balance rests in several police, enforcement trust funds, and mayor's accounts. There were 84 payments cleared in July. The total general fund for the month was $288,000. Now, this number, as I mentioned in the finance meeting, this number is significantly higher than what we spent during July of last year. And there's several reasons for this. One, we had to pay to finish the roof over at Station 47. That totaled nearly $100,000. There was a payment to management partners that totaled $18,000. And we've seen an overall increase in overtime during July. However, I don't anticipate substantial monthly appropriation increases for the remainder of the year, like what occurred during July of this year. So hopefully, we anticipate appropriation spend to level out each month for the rest of the year. As for revenues, village income tax receipts for the month were $77,000. This is $21,000 more than what the village received during the same period last year. Total income tax revenues stand at $547,000 for the year. This is $61,000 more than what we were able to generate through July of 20. Total general fund revenues for the month were $89,000. Again, this is an increase of nearly $23,000 over last year's figure. Total general fund revenues for the year, $81,000 more than what the village generated over the same time. So revenues are up. Unfortunately, expenses were up, but I think that was, we shouldn't see expenses on a monthly basis near what we spent in July of this year. We also have a reappropriation for tonight. So village administration is requesting council approve a supplemental reappropriation. We're requesting an adjustment of $34,436. We're requesting this adjustment in order to provide sufficient funding to cover several expenses that include increased attorney's fees, provide sufficient funding to pay the village insurance bill, and to provide a supplemental appropriation to the village's service department due to increased unplanned expenses. So we are incurring Mr. Donald's services a little bit more due to our fire and EMS situation.
Well spent, by the way.
Well spent. We've had several unplanned appropriation spends this year. In order to do that, for most of the year, we were moving money between line items, but those bills have come due. And then one example is when we boarded up the buildings in Stover, that cost approximately $4,000, and that was taken from the service department's appropriations. So they need that money to do their job for the rest of the year, so I'm requesting that we cover those expenses. I'm also requesting that we account for and appropriate the ARPA funding that Ron mentioned, totaling $187,000. That's the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lanza. Are there any questions, and do we need to, is there an act of this body that we need to do to approve that?
We would have a motion to accept the report, but that adjustment also includes the $5,000 we're paying out in this settlement for that old litigation. Yeah, just to update you, there's been a claim pending for 4 or 5 years.
2015.
A woman who claimed that when we operate our fire department, that the fire truck made a turn and hit her car and injured her up at the corner, I think it was Xanadu and Montgomery Road.
That tight corner, that police, I mean, individual cars have a hard time to making that turn.
It has been a disputed claim before. Disputed in terms of liability, the question of injuries. It happened during a period of time where we were between our insurance companies. So the old company said, "You're no longer with us, it's yours." The new company said, "Well, it happened before we got on board, it's yours." So we were able to resolve it in mediation for a payment of $5,000. It's within Mr. Hurt's authority, but we wanted to bring it to your attention because it was several years ago where we talked about settling it for less than that, but it did not work out. And after multiple filings and refilings and attorneys, the mediator helped us get this concluded. Money well spent to be finished with it. So you don't need to approve it, other when you're approving the appropriations, it automatically gets adopted. But you do need a motion to accept Mr. Lanzer's report.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The last thing I have is a brief discussion about the 2022 tax budget. Hopefully everyone attended was able to follow along during the special meeting. But I'll give a real brief overview. We requested an extension for submission of the tax budget, and that extension was granted by the county auditor. So here we are this evening. As for revenues, for the most part, next year's general fund revenues mirror those from this year, with two notable exceptions. Those exceptions are income tax revenues are increased from $785,000 to $820,000. We were able to do this based on historical receipts from fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. And then the second significant adjustment in the revenues is to increase the intergovernmental revenue line item from $12,000 to $630,000. And this was to account for additional property tax revenues that will be received by the village from the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District in fiscal year 2022. As for expenditures in the general fund, total expenditures are set to be $2,725,359. This is a 28% increase in expenditures. Again, the main reason is we need to pay the money to cover the fire EMS for the village next year, and we are hoping to increase staffing for the police department to be at the recommended for the staffing level. They are understaffed currently. Total expenditures for the police levy are $249,000. Total expenditures for the street levy are $300,000, and Exhibit 3 expenditures are anticipated to be $266,000. End of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Are there any questions? I'll ask Chief Campbell. Report.
First thing I have is the mayor's court report for the month of July. It's been distributed in the packet. Total to the village is $2,318. Total to the state, $485.50. With the other line, which is the other line is $13.50 for a total of $2,817 as the end of the mayor's court report.
Motion to accept the mayor's court report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second, I wanted to advise the mayor and council, Gulf Manor Police Department on August 1st. We joined the pilot program through Women Helping Women. It's called Convert. What that does is 24 hours a day, every 365, when officers are on a domestic call, they can request a social worker from Women Helping Women be dispatched to the domestic scene. That enables the victim to get information on the spot. They can help with lodging, they can help with transportation, schedule services, help with family or meals or anything like that. There's 15 communities that are doing that out of the 44 police departments in Hamilton County. So I'm glad to be part of that. Like I said, it went live August 1st. If you have any questions about that, you can get with me on that. It's still new to us. And we'll be collecting data. We'll get a year from now. We'll get data on all the runs and all the results. But they've seen increase in success in dealing with some of these situations where the person doesn't feel like they're doing it. So I'll report back to that as we get data on that.
Thank you. Most of you know that I spent 16 years in social services before in a prior life here, and I'm familiar with that program. It's a great program for the reasons that the chief brought up in terms of being able to, have someone stop in and talk to someone to help them out, whether that be in terms of needing a place to stay that night because of some kind of domestic thing that went on, whether it be being able to follow up with other assistance from that time moving forward. So Women Helping Women, I think probably everyone has heard of that organization. They're a wonderful organization. So very proud that our community will be working with them. So thank you, Chief.
Sure. And finally, I have some numbers from the activity report for the month of July. I've been working on trying to update how I deliver this information to the mayor and the council. And I think we found a solution now with Crime Star. We've been doing some updates with that. We've had a lot of work with the servers going on. So we finally got some of the IT stuff where it's more settled down and I'm able to pull some data. So going forward, I'll share more specific activity we did. But for tonight, I can report to council that we had 442 calls for service in the month of July. This calls resulted in 25 criminal offense reports. And like I said, I'll be able to share more of this with you as we go forward.
Great, thank you, Chief. Any questions? All right. And I will ask our solicitor, Mr. Donovan.
Thank you. We have 4 pieces of legislation this evening. The first, as mentioned earlier, is the reappropriations that Mr. Lanzer discussed, which is ordinance number 2021-10. I have a motion to read this by title only.
So moved.
All those in favor?
So this is an ordinance to amend appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Gulf Manor for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021. We need a motion to approve, a second, and a roll call vote.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Ms. Cheney?
Yes.
Mr. Brittenhoff?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn?
Yes.
And I need a motion to suspend the rules if this be read on 3 separate occasions. A motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
Motion.
It's the same.
Second.
Yes, the same.
Let's see what.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Ms. Cheney?
Yes.
Mr. Brittenhoff?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn?
Yes.
Thank you.
The second is Resolution 2021-28. The Port Authority has the Hamilton County Land Reutilization Corporation, basically the land bank. They acquire distressed properties, particularly distressed properties that have large tax liens on it. They've offered to sell to Gulf Manor for $1,000 a lot on Vera Avenue, which I believe is a vacant lot.
Yes.
All the tax liens were cleared last week. So this is authorizing that contract to acquire the property for $1,000. And so I need a motion to read this by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is a resolution authorizing a sale/purchase agreement with Hamilton County Land Reutilization Corporation to acquire property at 2518 Vera Avenue. We need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Lancer.
Can I ask a question real quick? If we don't acquire it, does it go up for auction?
Yes. This is a program where first it's offered back to the community.
That's what I was wondering.
For the idea that the community may be able to use it for development, economic development. We may be looking at, we would have a public purpose for it. After we acquire it, we have to vote what that public purpose would be so we can exempt it from the tax rolls, even though maybe a nominal amount, we'll still pay tax on the land. So I know there's been some ideas on maybe using that for passive park space or even parking to relieve some of the Vera Avenue issues.
Mr. Badger? Yes. Ms. Cheney?
Yes.
Mr. Brittenhoff?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn?
Yes.
This next ordinance, or resolution, I'm sorry, number 2021-29. There's been a lot of activity on resolving these opioid lawsuits. Pharma, the principal manufacturer of OxyContin, has filed bankruptcy. We filed a claim as a creditor in that bankruptcy proceeding, and we approved a plan for the bankruptcy, which may result in some monies coming back to the village. Last year, we approved a resolution authorizing our participation in the One Ohio negotiations through the Attorney General's office, where all communities would join together to get that resolution now with the distributors. This recommendation came through very quickly just 2 weeks ago, that they had reached a settlement with 3 of the distributors, and they're asking each community to approve it and approve authorization to sign this participation agreement. The participation agreement has 2 purposes, and that's what this resolution is about, is authorizing that. One is to release them from liability. So like in any lawsuit, settlement with them. The second is to commit ourselves to the mechanism in which these funds will be distributed and expended. I think it's crazy participation. If we get to 95% level of participation, I think we get $30,000. So it's 95% of every community in the state of Ohio has to say, I'm on board. If they get to 70%, there's another tier. Our commitment is that we will limit those expenditures for education, abatement, and treatment. So they're trying to get away from communities receiving the money and then reimbursing themselves for old overtime. Almost all the communities are jumping on board. I think City of Cincinnati is balking because they want millions of dollars coming directly to them to reimburse them for past expenses. When we committed to the One Ohio MOU, we committed to that structure where 60% of it's going to go to Ohio to a foundation, so the legislature can't touch it and appropriate it. That foundation would manage the money to the various communities around the state with grants. Part of it will go to the state of Ohio to compensate them for what they've spent through Medicaid and so forth. And then part of it will pay for attorney's fees, not mine. I'd love to participate in those attorney's fees. But it's been very well structured and highly recommended by the state attorney general and attorney generals across the country. So what we're doing with this resolution is authorizing Mr. Herb to sign this participation agreement and then filing it by the newest deadline, which is this Friday. The first deadline was August 6th. They told us about on August 8th. The next deadline was August 13th, which they told us on August 8th. And now the new deadline is August 20th, which they told us last Friday. So any questions, comments?
I have a question with it. My understanding is that we've already committed to this. I've got a question about I understand how this money goes into a foundation, and then treatment facilities can then ask for grants to not just for back costs, but then also in terms of providing future treatment for individuals to which this epidemic has affected. I'm wondering, was there any, because I can imagine treatment centers were the major lobbyists for having it structured this way, and I think that's a great way of addressing the crisis that we've had with the opiates. Has there been any part of this that's addressed the individual families that have been affected?
Oh, there's any family that's brought an individual claim is not included in this.
Right. Have individual families in Ohio, all right, when we talk about how this has affected so many families, has the settlement addressed that component of it? No.
They've left them out of there because those are individual, unique claims.
Okay.
This is only the public entities.
All right.
So like the pharma case, there's a whole class of individuals who filed wrongful death lawsuits or personal injury lawsuits who are bound in that class. This is just to settle the litigation initiated by the state and the local governments and to focus it upon, respectively, treatment, education, abatement, going forward with that industry.
Right. Understood.
And then the industries have a new thing too, is the industries have to report to a central reporting area their distribution statistics.
Yeah.
So they can monitor and say what's going on in this county that you're over distributing.
But there is a separate class action of all the families joined together?
I don't know if it's ever been approved as a class action because of the uniqueness of how each family could have been impacted.
Okay.
But this does not impact those families. It only is a settlement by the
Understood.
community for the community's claim.
Any other questions? Motion to, what is this? approve
We
by
have motion to
title?
read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this is a resolution to accept the material terms of the One Ohio subdivision settlement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and consistent with the terms of the July 2021 National Opioid Settlement Agreement and declaring an emergency. The reason this would be an emergency is it would take effect immediately for us, so we can upload this and file it by August 20th. So I need that motion to approve it as an emergency.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
And then all those, so when we need this as a roll call vote.
But who was the motion by? I'm sorry.
Mr. Brennan.
Second was Commissioner Van Horn. All right.
Mr. Van Horn. Roll call.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Batcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Brittenhoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
And then the last piece of legislation was the added starter for tonight, the resolution adopting our tax budget. Once we approve this, Mr. Lanza will then file it with the county. The Budget Commission will then look it over, approve it, and authorize us to move forward with our budget in 2022. So I need a motion to read this by title only.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this is a resolution adopting a tax budget for 2022. I need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Batcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Brittenhoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Thank you. I will make sure that they receive our participation agreement with a copy of our resolution, and I'll keep you posted to what the next step may be. The amount of the settlement was actually close to $1 billion combined from these three distributors. And there's still one distributor out there yet who is in litigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donilon. Ms. Snyder.
Yes, executive committee did meet tonight. Mr. Hirth already explained where we are at with the waste collection RFP. The only other thing I would add is that people will be able to get a second recycling bin or trash can for no additional cost if they call Rumpke after this new contract is signed. And Rumpke will also be sending out a mailer at their cost to inform people of the new contract details. We also discussed playground equipment replacement. We are still waiting on some mock-ups from a vendor that we have been talking to, and also specific installation prices. An email has been sent out to get feedback from a lot of Gulf Manor families on some identified pieces of equipment. We're hoping to have everyone's feedback by the end of this week. We would like this process to involve as many people as possible. So I am recommending, or the executive committee recommends, that we schedule a special executive meeting just to discuss the park equipment for August 23rd at 6:30.
Next Monday.
Next Monday. And then we also discussed Fremont Avenue traffic on the one-way portion of the street. There's been some chatter online about concerns of specifically delivery drivers driving the wrong way on that one-way street. And Chief Campbell let us know that they haven't really received any reports to this effect. So if you are hearing this from people, let them know they need to call the police so that they can go out there and watch the situation. But if they do get a lot of reports, or if we feel it's necessary, we can look into adding additional signage about being one way. I believe that is the end of my report. Oh, we do meet, September 13th at 6 p.m.
So you need to ask council to set your special meeting.
Okay, do I ask for a motion?
Mhm.
All right, may I have a motion to set that special meeting for the August 23rd at 6:30? Oh, I'll make that motion.
Second.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Also in the meeting, I made a motion that directed Mr. Hurt to go ahead and get with the adventurous child Do we need to do that here? To, find out what
Update the
$50,000 would get for us now? So that we have a comparison.
Could we do that a second time here?
Do we need to do that again?
I wasn't thinking so because he's directed to already,
Okay.
but we should update the
If
council
council
if that's occurring.
directed to do it, and he's
Yes, okay.
reporting back to the
Yeah.
committee.
Okay.
Mr. Hurst is also going to contact Adventurous Child
Mhm.
to get an updated quote for her.
So what we agreed is hopefully by next Monday, the mock-ups, there was another piece of information, the quote for
Installation
installation.
Yeah.
That cost, and then an updated quote from Adventurous Child. Hopefully we'll have all that to consider on that Monday.
Is there a deadline for you to either have one or the other, or both plans?
I was gonna speak to that and say,
I don't want to lose the grant.
yeah.
Yeah, he said September 15th was when he hoped to have the
Well-
checks sent out.
Now that I have more clarification, I'm gonna call them this week and I'm gonna tell them that our drop dead to have information to them is September 15th.
Right.
Is there a reason why if the drop dead for the money is the 30th? Who are you saying? You're saying that the county, the people who'd be giving us the money, you're telling them that our deadline is the 15th?
That we're gonna have our act together by the 15th of September.
Okay.
Because what that will happen is we need to do to pay this vendor, and then the checks will need to be cut, and we'll need to get it to whomever, get copies of the information and submit it to the county. I'm building timeframe in there.
Right.
I don't want to
But
do
I
this.
didn't want them to be like, well, the information came in on the 16th, so we're not giving you money. That's not what
They
you're
won't.
saying, right?
They were.
What I was trying to make clear for those who weren't aware is that a lot of thought is continuing to go into how to do this kind of a process to get feedback from the community. But yes, there is a timeline, so we're doing it in a different way than we'll be doing it moving forward with this. But yeah, getting community input is highest priority for, I think, probably all the committees of council and council as a whole. And I know the executive has been working very closely with the residents to try to get as many people involved in their
My
information.
concern was just that Mr. Hurd had a drop dead date for himself, that he could move forward.
Yeah.
One or the other, if one's not in or done or completed.
Yep.
I think we gotta be able to move forward with something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's covered in
So
executive.
whatever that is for now, I want to
Yeah.
make sure that we have that. And then we'll put on the trash contract, they're gonna do weekly recycling?
Yes. it's-
Okay, I think that's important. 'cause
Yeah,
I don't think, at least we won't need a second recycling bin.
yeah.
So I think people should know that.
Well, we had
I
talked
believe
about
that's
increasing the
very-
size of the bins, but there's a significant investment cost in replacing all those. So the easiest thing to do is just pick it up more often. So hopefully our bins will suffice for a while.
The
I think
requests
from what
for,
I've heard from residents, I think a lot of them are really happy this week. I think,
I will.
because they are filling their bins in 2 weeks, and then, but I just want to make that, you know,
the requests for bins, I think this was stated in executive, you were administration was recommending that we hold off on a public announcement about this kind of stuff, because if people start calling in about getting the extra bins right now, they're gonna be told that they're gonna be charged for it. We don't want confusion with that going on, so we're gonna hold off on, but yeah, it's a significant piece of this that you can get additional bins if you need them. And yeah, that they can be picked up weekly. All right. Any other questions for executive? I thank you for your report. Ms. Cheney, do you have an education report?
Just at the PRM LSDMC meeting, the first one for the school year is September 8th at 3:30.
Thank you, Ms. Cheney. Mr. Pridenoff, do you have a nonprofit report?
No.
Report. Fire district report, Mr. Lanzer?
The next fire board meeting will be this Wednesday at 6 PM in Gulf Manor. I believe that it will be in the hall, Hopefully we get It's well attended by both residents of the Village of Golf Manor and the residents of Ridgewood. Learn more about their plan for future fire and EMS service.
Very good. I'm aware of that the word for that has been put out in social media. Planning Commission, Mr. Betcher.
Planning Commission meets Monday, September 7th at 6:30 to hear a variance request for a fence on 3 monitors. And the report.
Community Engagement did not submit a report for this evening unless there is a report that I'm unaware of.
And they did not meet.
They did not
That's my
meet.
understanding.
Okay. Finance Committee, Mr. Betcher.
Brief reports, I think Mr. Lanzer covered the majority of, and Mr. Hart covered the majority of what we reviewed in finance. The one thing is good news, the 2019, 2020 audits is going extremely smoothly and hope to have that wrapped up very soon, later this year. So a parting gift for Ms. Gideon and some help from Mr. Lanzer. So we're in great shape, way better than in years past. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Betcher. Project 47 Task Force. Mr. Hurth and Mr. Dunlap.
Just very quickly, we had a meeting last week. Mr. Earth and I with the Deer Park Silverton Fire Department, also with Columbia Township. We have received a proposal from Deer Park Silverton for fire service. The conversation last week was if Station 47 may be going dark for whatever reason next year, how is our contract impacted by Deer Park Silverton also servicing Ridge Fire District? There was some comments about, yeah, there should be some economy of scale. So they are actually working up a proposal to share back with both of us being Ridge Fire District, Columbia Township, and Golf Manor. Hopefully to get that maybe as soon as tomorrow. And then we could talk about what makes sense for allocation of that contract. I don't know that they'll have anything for discussion at their board meeting on Wednesday night, but that's where we are. We also have a mediation on the calendar just to keep the momentum going forward. One of the questions we did ask Chief Meter was, we're now into August. If his proposal involves increasing staffing and requiring additional equipment, is he ready to do that January 1? And then what would be the date by which everybody would have to commit? So that's something he's working into his proposal. But I thought it was a very productive meeting. Very productive meeting.
And I'm sorry to backtrack here, but for the board members of the Little Miami Fire District, one of the concerns that the administration has is the lack of staffing in Station 47. So whatever our future is, whether it's the next 4 months or if something miraculously would happen and we're in this for another year, we need to address that. Because in my opinion, they are in breach of contract when that station only has 2 people in there, and that needs to be mitigated. We have a contract with them, they need to offer fire service. So I know you guys will deal with that, but you have our support.
I added that. Thank you.
That's all we have.
Okay, so some announcements.
Are we doing any executive sessions?
No, we don't need an executive session this evening.
Okay. Regular council meetings will resume in September 13th with the executive committee at 6 p.m., council at 7 p.m. Even with the increase with the COVID cases, participation in council meetings by council members and members of the public is required in person. So we are streaming, but participation, if you want to speak, you got to be here in person. We spoke to the protocols for safety with that. We'll continue streaming the video meetings on the website as appropriate. New council meetings will be on Monday, September 24th as follows: Finance Committee at 6 p.m., Council at 7 p.m. Any other announcements?
Are we having executive for anyone?
Yes, that was read on September 13th.
Okay.
Yes. Executive Committee at 6 p.m., Council at 7 p.m.
And Mr. Pridnoff, I know that we're coming up on some holidays. If you could just, when you get the opportunity, check the calendar, just make sure we're,
I think we did that before, but I'll double check, just in case.
yeah, let's double check.
No problem.
Thank you.
You didn't get the opportunity to take off. Is that what-
Sure, if I can carry your bags.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your service, everyone.
Can we give that to Ron?
Yeah, he had a whole set for me to sign.
That's originals, I just,
Oh, okay.
and I'll, they're just a PDF. We send them. I'll email you tomorrow to get a copy of that signed one
Yeah.
for the opioid settlement, so I can upload
Does
it.
I need to have a certification with it?
Got it. And it's very.
I'll process those first
And
thing.
then I need to tell you if you want to email it, send it to them.
Yeah, I was
I have a
waiting
quick
to hear
question.
back from
So,
everyone.
For dinner.
I was thinking I would.
Isn't
I didn't-
I'll remind that.
Okay. Right, yes.
Oh.